And welcome back. It's Jason Walter here. I'm so excited to share today's video because I have David Parnes of the agency, one of the stars of Million Dollar Listings. Welcome to the channel, David. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jason. It's a privilege and an honor to be on.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this video because I was just telling you, we kind of talk about, averages across the nation about what's going on with our housing market here, but it's really hard to find data regarding the luxury real estate market. And I obviously you're the expert regarding that. So I want to talk about that, some changes you've been seeing over the past several years here, how commission structures are broken up, and also a little bit about the show because you were on the hit TV show Million Dollar Listings LA, which my family and I have watched every single episode for several years now. So anyways, yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. We have a lot to go over in today's video here. And we're just talking about this. You and your partner, James, have over $3 billion in home sales since 2017 alone. And year to date, you're at $760 million. I mean, hats off to you guys. That's absolutely phenomenal.
We've got to hit that billion this year.
Well, you have a few months to go.
Yeah. It never stops. It never stops.
It never stops. Yeah. So first, I want to talk about the hit TV show you were on, Million Dollar Listings Los Angeles. You guys are no longer on the show, I hear. And I guess, how did that all get involved? How did you guys get involved in that TV show?
It's funny because it was back when we first started out, and we really just first started our agency business in 2012. We get a call towards the end of that year, and apparently Madison had left the show, and they were casting for a replacement because it was just Josh then. And we got a call, and we ended up on a Skype with the casting company, and her name is Galoka Bolte, great person. We were joking around. We were like, we just started our business. We hadn't sold that much real estate. I watched the show beforehand, so it was just like this whole thing was a joke. I was like, I had muscles back then. I was like, doing that, being a bit of a wally. But anyway, and the next thing you know, they sent out a camera crew to follow James and I around for the day and get really a sizzle. They did that. And then lo and behold, they were ready for us, and they gave us the position as a duo because they liked us together. And the rest is history. 8 years, 10 years, 9 years, 10 years, 10 years ago, 9 years ago.
Wow. Time flies, doesn't it? It's absolutely amazing. I mean, that's the phone call you want to receive if you're an agent in Los Angeles, I guess, right?
Yeah. Well, I always say that a lot of people fly to Los Angeles to be on TV. We did not do that. I flew to Los Angeles. James flew to Los Angeles to sell real estate. And by default, we just ended up on TV selling real estate. But it was an incredible opportunity, and it created an incredible platform for us, especially when we were first starting out. And we never look back. It's
amazing. So yeah, how has it changed your career and your personal life being on that TV show?
I have no idea about our career because it was when we were first starting out. So it was concurrent. Yeah. I have no doubt in my mind it helped us tremendously and raised our profile and probably acted as a catalyst. We were always going to work harder than everyone else to get to where we are. But the truth is, I can't see how the show did not act as a catalyst for that and speed up that process for sure. And it's been an incredible journey. It really has. Surreal. I think it's like in a few years when we've been off the show for a while, we'll probably look back and say, oh my goodness, we were on that show, because when you're on it and it's all going on, you don't have time to think.
No, I imagine it's very, very busy, and they're probably just following you around every day, I would imagine, or during the week to figure out.
Yeah, it can be any day, any week. And we film on that show, it would be 11 months of the year. So you're pretty much filming all year round.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What were some of the biggest surprises being on the TV show and the whole film production process that kind of surprised you weren't expecting?
I mean, it's interesting because it's very real. So it's like you think to yourself, oh, it's reality TV. But when you watch it as an audience member, you're watching other people's stories. When you're actually on it, you're watching your own story. And it's kind of interesting to watch it back afterwards because there's a lot of history there over 8-9 years, right? And a lot of transactions. If we're probably going to do an average of maybe 10 transactions per season, and we did 7-8 seasons, that's 70-80 real estate deals and stories to go with them that we shot. So it's kind of crazy.
That is really neat. And so you guys are not on the show anymore, I hear. And so what do you guys, maybe what was the decision regarding that? And what are you guys doing now?
Well, our business,
are you guys still selling real estate?
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason our business just went to such a level whereby we would just time is your biggest commodity, right? And we didn't want to jeopardize that for our clients or for our business and where we're going. And it just got to a point whereby it's been incredible. We had an amazing ride, but our business has just gone to the stratosphere, and we're grateful for that. And we're extremely, extremely busy. We are looking at other opportunities as well, don't get me wrong. And we also set up a podcast and a newsletter called The Blueprint, which is readtheblueprint.com, which has been an incredible platform for us to give advice and tell our stories to newer agents out there. Because when we first started out in this business, we didn't have the kind of guidance. We looked up to certain agents, right? Like Mauricio, Kurt Rappaport, Drew Fenton, Jade Mills, like, you know, the big wigs, right? They kind of showed us what was possible and how far you could take this business. But what we didn't have is that direct advice and information from them, right? Mauricio has been very helpful. We work with him, and he's been incredible.
Is he your broker? Is that who he is?
He is the owner of the agency, Mauricio. Yeah, we are within the agency, and he's been an incredible mentor. But what we're trying to do is effectively give back to newer agents out there by telling our story of how we did what we did. And by the way, it's full of mistakes, and we admit that. But I've said this so many times. It's like, you know, success is failure turned inside out, right? That's what it is. You have to make mistakes. But what we're trying to do is, yes, make the mistakes, but to have that information and our story and a lot of mistakes we've made that might actually save you from making those mistakes can only benefit you. And to give you that blueprint, again, that's why we call it the blueprint, to give you that blueprint that we have created based on our experience and our stories, is actually proven very valuable. You know, we've got 15,000 subscribers in just a few months, and it's growing rapidly. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think that there's so much information out there, and to take it from someone who has literally billions of dollars in real estate, then like you guys will obviously be the ones to listen to, and you have guest speakers too. I was listening to a couple of podcasts this morning, actually on the, for the Blueprint, and it has some really valuable information, especially regarding social media. I mean, social media has changed so much over the past really 5 years, really, let alone the past like 15 years. And so there's just so much more opportunity for new agents and, you know, experienced agents to really get on social media, and rather than just, you know, door knocking and putting up billboards in your neighborhood. Right.
Totally.
And so try sharing that. So the reader for the Blueprint are real estate agents and people in the field then?
Yeah, people in the field. I think clients watch it anyway because they like to know the workings of how we negotiate and, you know, what we actually do for them. And mainly realtors, you know, people that are starting out that don't have access to the advice that's so valuable. I mean, look, the reality is, yes, we are proven. Yes, we have sold billions of real estate, but we started from nothing. We started by rolling up our sleeves and door knocking because we didn't have listings. You know, the biggest conundrum is, how do you get listings if you don't have a track record? But how do you get a track record if you don't have listings? That's what every new agent is faced with. And we talk about that. We talk through how we got around that and to grow to having $1.5 billion of signed listings, either under construction or on the market right now. So we tell our story of how we got there and all the ins and outs and all the challenges we faced and how we overcame them.
That's really awesome. And how do people, it's a YouTube channel, it's a podcast, and it's a newsletter as well. So how do people find out more information about that?
Yeah, it's a podcast and it's also a newsletter. And you can literally subscribe by going to readtheblueprint.com and put your email address, and you are joined onto the mailing list, and you will not regret it.
I guess I'm one of the 15,000 actually.
You are.
I think it's a good segue. You're obviously going to put out a lot of value information on the newsletter and the podcast, and then you throw that on YouTube as well. I think it's a really good segue into the luxury real estate market. Again, I talk about, you know, $400,000 houses that we're seeing in the market. I talk about the California housing market too. A lot of challenges there that we're seeing right now with lack of affordability, but luxury real estate market is completely different. I mean, I don't really have much concept regarding, you know, a lot of people ask me, like, who is a buyer for a $900,000 home? But really the question for you is, who's a buyer for a 10 million or 50 million or $100 million home? I just have no concept regarding that. I think that my subscribers and viewers would really like some insight regarding, you know, changes you've been seeing with the luxury real estate market over the past few years because of COVID, stay-at-home orders. I know a lot of people are buying houses where they're having that estate where they're working from home and it's this beautiful estate or whatever. So, you know, changes over the past few years for luxury real estate. Well, let's just start with that.
Totally. Yeah. I think, look, it's a very good question because we're seeing rates go up. We're hearing about the housing market going down across the nation, across the world in some
Yeah.
respects as well. But when you're talking about the ultra high end market, when we're talking about 10 million, like you said, 20 million, 30, 40, 50, 60, I mean, we sold a $56 million teardown, for example. That's how big the numbers can go.
They
Um,
bought land for $56 million.
they bought a house, but they've gutted and basically taken it down to the studs, and that's 56 million sales. So, it's $150 million on the exit, if not more. But the point is, there's very little inventory, believe it or not. It's incredible because the buyers of these properties are either all cash or they've just got an incredible loan at like 2%. Why they're going to sell, and that really goes for $5-10 million and up. And what we're seeing as a result of that is this is not the same as '08, right? This is totally different. That was all funny money, over leverage, banks that had, over collateralized and sold off toxic debt to, to SIBs
Investors.
and CDOs. You know how it works, the asset-backed security market. So it wasn't real money, right? Today it's real money. People have conventional loans, 2%, they're locked in, or they're just sitting on it all cash. And they have no will to sell. Why are they going to break a 2% loan and not be able to get that back? If they're all cash, they don't need to sell. So we're seeing, especially in the higher market, a very restricted inventory. And that is because, like I mentioned, people don't need to sell, and they don't really want to sell because it's not an asset class that you're just buying as an investment purely. Although it's a great investment, you also get function out of it. You're living in that, and people need to live somewhere. And with that much money, you want to live somewhere, whether it's your first home, second home, third home, whatever it is. They could have homes around the world, but it acts as an incredible investment, and also it functions as an incredible home.
Yeah, it's interesting because I talk about that on my channel quite a bit. Is that if someone has a 2.6% 30-year fixed rate mortgage and now rates are at 7.1%, it doesn't give them a whole lot of motivation to sell. The move up buyer basically is dead now because if I was to sell my house and buy a bigger house, nicer house, my housing payment would probably triple.
Yeah,
And so there's really like a lot of people like myself are like, why would I give up my historically low rate that you and I, David, may never have seen in our lifetime here.
totally.
And so it's interesting to hear that you are seeing that in the luxury real estate market too. So you can get a loan for $10 million with a 2% interest rate 2 years ago then?
Yeah, I mean, you can get,
Wow.
yes, basically in a nutshell, yeah, and I see a lot of it. I've sold houses, and recently, $30 million houses, and there's the seller's reluctant because it's 2% interest for 10 years, right, or 9 years left to run on it, or even 8 years left to run on it. That's very compelling because it's a very low carry, and it's massively restricted supply. So what we're seeing is in the super high end, anything good that's available literally get snapped up because I'm still seeing there's a massive surplus of buyers in this realm that can't find anything to buy.
Interesting. So the buyers you're seeing now, are they more cash buyers given the fact that rates have increased so much, or is
Yeah, I
it
mean,
not so much?
yeah, they are. They're cash buyers that know that they could either refi later on or just keep it all cash. But there are loans as well. Everyone talks about, oh my God, loans at 8%, blah, blah, blah. They're actually not. There's banks that you can actually borrow in the 4s at. So it's not as expensive to borrow as people think it is. It's actually not really 8%. It's going to be in the 4s if you're qualified and you can, you have the credit and liquidity. You can borrow in the 4s, which is historically pretty damn good.
I mean, it's very, very good. My parents bought a house in the 80s and their rate was, was it 15%, 30-year fix? I mean, obviously home prices were like super low back then, but it was just crazy.
There you go. And they will go back down again. Even people like I bought myself, I just locked in a 4.6% rate, right? And the truth is that, yeah, and I say this a lot because a mortgage broker said to me, you're not married to your loan, you're just dating it, right? And it's true. And, in 1-2 years time, when obviously the interest rate hikes work and inflation cools down, then they'll lower interest rates again. At that point, I'll call up my mortgage broker and I will refinance. And suddenly my payment will go down dramatically and I'm still living in the house that I love.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's different than buying like stock. You have Tesla stocks, you're not getting a whole lot of enjoyment looking at it in your living room, right?
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Basically, you can't live it, right? You can't entertain in it. You can't have people around it. You can't make your kids happy in it, right? So the home is your sanctuary, truly. And it's not just an investment, it's a lifestyle as well. And I've learned that more than ever from buying myself.
Yeah, makes sense. So obviously, when COVID hit, you saw probably a huge increase in the number of people looking for luxury real estate. Have you not seen that change much over the past, like I guess this year, really? Then
No, no change. I mean, again, it goes
interesting.
back to inventory. There was a lot more inventory
Mm,
in the
yeah.
high end when COVID hit, and it all got bought up. And by the way, rates were so low then. So yes, the thing is,
Mhm.
people were competing. You could have. We literally saw on a $10 million property 30 offers. How could 30
30 offers for a $10 million home?
30 competing offers on a teardown? By the way, as well. So unbelievable.
Wow.
So that's what was happening when rates were at 2% and 2.5% people could borrow at. But what my argument is right now, you can buy a property that you actually want, because when you have that kind of competitive nature and you've got 30 people you're competing against, the chances are you're not really going to find your dream home. Right now, when it comes up, you're not going to have 30 people. So you stand a better chance of buying your dream home. And like I
Yeah.
mentioned, refinancing later. And then you take the 5-year view and you actually are living in a house that you love with a low interest rate. That is the dream. It may have cost you a little bit of a premium up until then by paying higher percentage interest on your monthly payment on your mortgage, but
Mhm.
it all kind of levels out at the end of the day, because you're buying a house for many, many years. And I'd rather have that house and own that house that I truly love, even if it costs me a little bit more in the short term, because I can always refi in the future. And
Makes
you
sense.
that 3 to 5 year view, you're in the house you love with a good payment.
Makes sense. And so I'm curious too, like what's the commission structure like on a luxury property? I mean, in Sacramento, I would say probably, 99% of the time it's 2.5% to the buyer's agent. Are you getting the same percentages? Because when you go on, when you're watching the show, you're showing like $100 million listing, and they're like, oh, this is going to be like what is it, $6 million commission or
Much
whatever
the
it
same.
is.
It's much the same. Yeah, it's much the
Is it
same.
really?
Yeah.
Okay, so the buyer's agent typically gets around 2.5%, and the
Yeah.
seller's agent gets around 2.5 to 3.5% then.
Well, I'd say, on the top end, it's going to be, around 4 to 5% total. So 2 to 2.5% aside.
That's amazing. Okay. And then what are you seeing right now with the buyer's psyche regarding the luxury real estate market, given the fact that obviously rates have increased, but also the decrease in crypto, but also in the stock market as well. You're still saying that maybe the lack of inventory is kind of supporting prices a little bit in
Very
the
much
luxury
so.
market then? Hmm.
Very much so, but I've also had clients liquidate stocks to buy real estate, right? Even at the low, because they
Yeah.
figure, okay, well, I don't have to pay much capital gains tax because the stock's quite low right now. And I'm just transferring it laterally into an asset class, which is bricks and mortar, which right now is safer. It's not going to disappear. Like you hear these stories that people, and I put into the stock market, you can literally 50% wiped out in a few weeks, or,
Yeah.
or even worse, you buy a bad stock, it goes out of business, you're basically down to zero. That's very unlikely to happen in real estate unless you over leverage yourself and you're,
Mhm.
buying. If you're buying conventionally, the banks qualify you in a healthy way, so that they're qualifying you because they don't want to have to foreclose on you, right? So you're unlikely to default based on passing underwriting and getting loan approval, and also just buying the actual asset. The worst case scenario, you could always lease out to cover its costs because rents have gone really high.
Yeah, rents are still high. I know that the rent growth has been slowing down, but I mean that's kind of like the other caveat of regard why we're seeing a lack of new listings hitting the market, because of people have historically low rates, but because if you're going to sell your house, where are you going to move to? You're going to move to a more affordable area, then that could make sense. But if you're going to be moving up, doesn't make a whole lot of sense given the fact that rates have increased so much.
Yeah,
Or you sell and then you rent out, but rent prices are horrendous. I think if I was to sell my house and rent out, my rent probably would still go up by double, and I don't have any write-offs from that. So it's a interesting dynamics we have right now regarding a slowdown in our market, but we're not seeing this giant increase of new listings like we did in the early parts of this year, which is not causing inventory to grow as much as we saw at the beginning of this year as well. So it's kind of these interesting dynamics. There's like this push and tug between buyers and sellers right now. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
totally.
And a segue for that is like, do you have any predictions for next year about what's going to be happening with the real estate market, whether it's the luxury market or the market in general?
I do actually. I think that the rates can continue to go up, and they may well do, because obviously the inflation numbers are pretty high, right? I think we're
Yeah,
in the eights right now. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong. It is the eights, isn't it?
I think you're right. Yeah, yes.
Kind of crazy. But eventually, even if they raise them up more and more, they're going to eventually curb inflation. Once that starts going down, rates will start going down. And that will basically mean that the market's going to heat up big time. And frankly, like I'm talking about on the top end market where we work right now, it's still very, very healthy. So I just think it's just going to go from there to there, right? Because you're going to have a combination of low inventory and low interest rates. Now, imagine you have that, what that does for pricing and value. So I'm very much a buyer right now, believe it or not.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, that's what we saw in 2020 and 2021, where we had low rates, very low inventory. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the Fed does. They have two more meetings this year,
Yeah.
next month, and then also in December. Are they really going to like bring the pain or not? And so they definitely are facing.
They
Go
don't
ahead.
always have a choice. They don't always have a choice. You know, when inflation is where it is and it's not showing signs of slowdown, their only real option is monetary policy. We all know that, right? Fiscal, yes, but they're never going to do that. You know, I want to get political, but I don't think they're going to stop spending, especially when, you know, things are going like they are. So I think, you know, they're going to probably raise interest rates again. And it's okay because it's all temporary and it's for a good cause.
Yeah, in the long run, I mean, it really it's for the good of the economy and also the housing market. If they were not to raise rates right now, I mean, I think they should have raised rates a while ago. They're kind of getting political here, but
Yeah.
because the housing market's been so hot, and so they need really to kind of put the brakes on, because I think the faster we go for the longer and for the longer period of time, the harder the pullback is going to be. And so they're definitely facing an uphill battle right now, to say the least.
Totally.
I know we only have a few more minutes left. I kind of want to go over a couple more questions that some of my viewers had. So Ryan Lundquist, who's an appraiser here in the Sacramento area, he puts up a lot of really good data regarding the housing market here. He says, I'd be curious to hear about any changes in the psyche of buyers and sellers at the luxury price point in this market. Any thoughts regarding that?
So sorry, can you just repeat that?
Yeah, sorry. I'd be curious of any changes in the psyche of buyers and sellers at the luxury price point in this market.
I think not a whole lot. I mean, yes, buyers definitely it's more expensive to borrow. So unless they really want the house, they're probably not going to do it. But again, like I mentioned, you can borrow in the fours right now. I know people are saying the eights, it's the fours if you're conventionally qualified. So that's actually very attractive historically, you know, comparatively. And so, yeah, there, you know, you're not getting 30 offers, which was unhealthy, which we saw before. You're probably going to get like a few, but if it's a good product, it's selling because we're in low inventory right now. And I think the sellers know that. But at the same time, even though there's low inventory, the sellers should be aware and typically are aware that it's still a price sensitive market and they can't just overprice and expect to get it basically.
Set a record, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we're seeing right now is I think kind of like overzealous home sellers who haven't received the memo. The market's kind of slowing down. That's why the share of price drops right now in California, I think is around 42%, which is on par with the nation right now as well. So be well, stay mindful. She said, when is the ideal time to buy a home in California? When will prices bottom out?
You know what? It's a good question. I think the ideal time to buy a house in California is when you find the house that you love, frankly, because like I mentioned, you're taking a 30-year view on that property, or maybe even a 20-year view on that property. And it's going to be, whenever you buy it, it's going to be worth more in 20, 30 years than when you paid for it. Plus, you're going to get to live in it and enjoy it and be able to refinance it in the future. So I think it's subjective. I think it's subjective to the actual property you're buying. If you find the property you love, buy it. Don't buy something just because it's cheap, because you have to live there and it's not going to, you know, give you what you absolutely want. And it's not going to be as liquid as it should be when you come to sell it. So I really think that, and by the way, again, there's low inventory, rates are going up and they have gone up, but it's still low inventory and there's still demand. People need somewhere to live and people have money right now. So I would say you find that house that you love, buy it. I just did.
Congrats on your sale. I didn't know that. That's awesome. Yes, I think that it's a good point, because I think that the decision whether to buy or sell is really a personal choice. And I always tell people, buy what's right for you. Don't listen to a real estate agent who's telling you right now is the time to buy, because it's a personal choice. But people reach out to me and say, hey, I want to buy a house in 3 years, or sorry, I want to buy a house now, but I want to move in a year. I want to sell. Say, well, you know, in the short term, you know, buying something probably doesn't make much sense. It's a little bit more risky. Last question we have here for you, because I know we're kind of wrap this up here. What has been the most surprising thing about being a public figure? Good question.
Most surprising thing, I guess, yeah, when I don't really look at myself like that, to be honest with you. I know it's
No, I mean, like, I'm sure you walk down the street, probably people recognize you from the
yeah,
show, and yeah.
they do. But I don't let it change me. I don't, I am who I am. I just don't let it get to me. And it's kind of like, people say hi, I'm a big fan or whatever they do, but they're just like, I just imagine they're people that I already know, right? So it is surreal, but it's not really. It's something that I would never let get to me.
Got it. Okay, good. Well, David, I really appreciate your time for coming onto the channel here. I mean, I love
Thank
talking about real estate, and especially luxury real estate market. Again, we don't touch a whole lot of that in my channel, and so really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today to learn more about the TV show, your newsletter, theblueprint.com, and anything else you wanted to add here?
Just thank you so much for allowing me on. I'm a big fan of your show and I watch it, and your data is incredible. The way you break everything down is amazing. So I hope I kind of lived up to your expectations, and it was a privilege. Thank you.
You're too kind. I appreciate that, David. Thanks so much. Awesome. Well, that's awesome. So to go on to the sign up for the newsletter, it's readtheblueprint.com. Is that right?
www.readtheblueprint.com. Yeah.
Awesome.
Jason, because I know you got a good viewer base there.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Well, thanks again, David. I hope you have an awesome day. And everyone who's watched this video, make sure you check out his newsletter, his podcast, and his new YouTube channel as well. And hope you guys have an awesome day, and we'll see you on the next video.